For more content and training on telling personal story, go to ramiro.me/show. Story Legacy at ramiro.me, a show for people who want to tell their story, make an impact, and leave a legacy. Personal stories from people just like you who have gone through tough shit and came out with a story to tell. I am Ramiro, creator of Story Legacy, your story god, and today on the show we have Karen Wilson.
I love that
Hey,
intro.
Karen.
That's
Welcome on
fantastic.
the show.
Thank you. How
Yeah,
can
the
I not feel?
was just an improvisation. I have never done that before.
Oh, really? That's yes. No, I've heard some of the beginning of your podcast. You're a great you do that well. You introduce people well. It makes us feel you know, like we're entering a room. So that's awesome. That was
You know
great.
what I
Thank you.
love about that delivery and that you mentioned that? Thank you for sharing that. Is because of the way I only say today we have and then the name, right? But it's the whole delivery that makes it this entrance, and which is so different from how people often are introduced by their titles and their accomplishments they've had. They're an influencer, they're 6 or 7 figure coach, or they have this many followings, of they've written these many books, of they have these awards. So then still I find just that simplicity of it just what you said, it makes people feel that they really enter a room, and you do enter a room. So Karen, thank you for coming on. And the first thing I'd like to ask to get us kicked off with is just let's go deep right away, and that is what with the question, like, what is one of the biggest challenges you have faced in life?
Oh my goodness. I feel like you just set up the segue for my answer. And that is like defining who I am and what it is I do. And I don't know if you've ever watched that show Suits. And there's the
Mm-hmm.
secretary Donna, and she doesn't have a title. She's just Donna. And so
Mm.
I think it was about a couple of years ago that I decided that I was just gonna, shed all the titles and just arrive as Karen. So when people ask me what I do Karen, because that's been one of the biggest, deepest struggles. I've had many different titles over my life, and at this point I have quite a few. It depends what we're talking about. Are we talking about my writing, or are we talking about what I do to fund my writing projects, which is, they're two different titles. And so, but I'm just Karen. you know and those titles might change as I go through life. So that is has always been a really big struggle, is just figuring out who I am and what I bring, with that title. Just ditch it. Ditch the title.
I love that. And actually, so I will, that resonates with me. That is for me also the biggest challenge I've faced so far, is just answering that question, who am I? Who are you? I even have some lyrics, a poem that I created from that. After the show, if there's time and space, I'll perform it for you if you want to receive that. Now, I am curious in the titles, right? When did you first get confronted with that question? Which phase of life? Like, who am I? Who is Karen?
Oh, I think it starts in the beginning. I remember when I was 7 years old, I started writing stories, and I wrote about like the normal things that a child writes about, like the puppy that I kidnapped from the neighbor when I was 4, and then how the leaves on the trees came to life when I got glasses, and things like how to catch and gut a fish, like my dad taught me. And really, it wasn't the writing that I really loved. I loved sharing my stories out loud. And then one day in second grade, the teacher asked us to write about something that we did on the weekend. And that was the weekend that my famous cousin, I was going to be meeting him for the very first time, Raymond Bork.
Mm-hmm.
He was a hockey player. And
Okay.
the entire family, we had tickets to go watch the hockey practice. So after practice, of course, he comes out of the locker room and he comes right up to me. He's big and I'm little, and he crouches down and he takes my hand and he says, "You must be Karen." And then he kissed my cheek. And of course, that's the first time I had ever been kissed by anyone. So as soon as I got home, I wrote down everything that I remembered and I began to share that story in class on Monday, and everyone giggled. And then at recess, of course, everyone starts to say, I hear that song, Karen and Raymond sitting in a tree. And after that, like I just made this decision just to keep all my personal stuff in my diary.
Mm.
Then I dropped out of school at 15. I got a
Okay.
job and I moved out of the house because that's just what you do. And it wasn't until about a decade later, I was a single mom to my son Jake, and I remembered, how much I loved writing. And I'm like, maybe there is something to this writing. And I decided that was the time to go back to school. And my teacher, Ian, he had us writing a ton of essays. And, it really felt good to be writing and sharing my work with someone again. And on the front of one of my assignments, he wrote, "I will always scan the shelves for your publications." I thought, wow, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. But then there
Mm-hmm.
was a shift in government and all of my financial aid was cut. I had to get a second job. Life got bananas and I couldn't do it all as a single mom. So I quit school again. And then of course the only thing I'm writing after that are things like the grocery list and when you hear those PA announcements in the store, well, that was me. About a decade after that, I'm walking down a beach with Barry, who was my partner at the time, now my husband, our kids, Jake and Cass, and Whiskey, which is our dog, not the whiskey.
I thought the third kid was named Whiskey.
And out of the corner of my eye, I see this police officer walking towards us. And he stops right in front of me and he says, "Are you Karen Abel?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Your father, Gordon, has passed this morning." And so I reached into my pocket and I remembered I quit smoking last year. And my dad's dream was to see the success of his children. And I felt like, I'm not done making you proud, Dad. So for the first time in my life, I knew that time was a gift I could no longer take for granted. And I had to get up my butt and start doing something about it. So today, I don't only write and share my stories, but I also help others get their life in motion and their ideas in motion. And dreams are coming true. So that's kind of where I landed here. I figured the first thing I needed to write was a health book because that was one of the biggest obstacles I overcame, is just knowing who I am as a person rather than a body. So yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. So
All right,
thank you.
beautiful. I got some chills from you sharing those bits and parts because I relate to so many of them. Now, just to recap real quick, you just had that passion, that natural tendency from a young age to write stories, and then
Hmm.
when you had that whole weekend meeting your famous cousin, getting your first kiss, and being so excited to write about that, wrote it, shared it, and then the whole class laughs at you, right? Because when you said
Yes.
giggles, like were they good giggles, but they were teasing, bullying, and then that what happened? You said, all right, no, my personal stories are for my diary only, and
Hmm.
I so relate with that. When I was in elementary school, I wrote a poem. It got published in a school newspaper, and then one friend came up. Well, I saw your poem in the newspaper, ha ha, and that was the feedback I got. So like, oh, people don't like it, but and then I had kept my art and my stories and my lyrics for myself, and
Yes.
then for you, then years later, all right, moving out of the house with the kids, etc. The other challenges. So you were a PA, well, the announcer at the grocery store. Clean
Actually,
up on aisle 5.
no, 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 no. Okay, so this is how it was. Like, it first started when I worked at Sears. I worked at a department store, and we had to pick up the phone and do PA announcements. Like, the first time you hear your voice in the loudspeaker, and it's just calling someone to the department. We need cash or we need something. And I learned a lot. Like, my dad was a salesman, and I learned a lot from him. Just not even really by shadowing him, but how to talk about really what are the benefits and the feelings about really connecting a client or a customer with what they really need, unless instead of what you think they need. So I just have that intuitive writing capability. So later in life, when I was a cosmetician at Shoppers Drug Mart, I would we would have to write these inviting PA announcements, come to get a makeover, come and do our next gala and all of these. And so quite often I was put in charge of doing that, and it kept me writing in a sense of the type of writing that you would do, say, on a landing or a sales page, right? Or in a conversation that you have with somebody on the sales floor. It's just really connecting with those feelings and emotions. So that's what I was doing. And then, of course, the grocery
Got
list,
it.
because you can't, you need to write that out.
All right, cool, got it. Okay, then. So that's interesting. That was one of the first times I gathered that you were writing copy for like sales and marketing
Yes.
purposes, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. And then you mentioned, for example, I know you say you are Karen. What do? You do Karen. So that means you are not the titles of what you do. So, for example, I bet you do identify with being a writer, right?
Yes. Yes.
Even though that does not define you, that's one of the hats you put on, right? One of the
Absolutely.
ways you express. All right, cool. Now, that's one, writing. And then, oh, what's the other title? I'm curious. You said the other thing you do that funds your writing.
Yes. So I work, the best way to describe it is I'm an education architect for online courses. So I work with teachers and organizations, and that's the bulk of my work. It's not to say that I don't do other things for clients. Sometimes I do video work, but my done for you services have been full for a long time, so I don't really advertise on that. But in the done for you services, that's what I do. So it's working on writing a course in a way that is a linear way that people can grasp and understand, and really talks to the person that is taking the course. Now, I used to do a lot of work where I would actually do the work and put it all in, but I found that my clients were mostly, and I still do for some, but I had to stop offering that, because I find that where people struggle the most is actually making that the curriculum flow to the receiver, if that makes sense. It's so that the student is learning, and they're able to implement the next day. So yeah.
If I paraphrase, if I understand correctly, you help teachers and educators build the curriculum. You help them write it out in a way that it gets delivered and received by the student, that the student gets
Yes.
the gems and takes action on it, that it's very clear. So you help them write out the curriculum. Got it. Cool.
Basically, and I don't do the writing. Because it's not my like, I don't do the writing, I don't do any of that. I just teach. I share with the structure, and then for the clients that I do work with, I do all the loading. But like I said before, I don't promote that, because it's not, I'm full. I'm
Got
full.
it. Yeah,
So
I got it.
I'm
Yeah.
working on writing a course on how to do an online course that is actually people can go in, and it's an evergreen, so that they do have some touch points with me, but it's like a step by step, you know, 30-day. This is what you do day 1 and day 2 and day 3. But I had to get this health book out first, health and wellness and body image, because I find that it doesn't matter what type of client. I spent about 6 or 7 years in the fitness industry, and I spent a
Mm-hmm.
decade in the cosmetic industry,
Mm-hmm.
and and then of course in another six years in the entrepreneurial world. And I spent some time as an online fitness coach and an MLM, and everything just kind of has the same thing. If we
Mm-hmm.
don't feel good about ourselves, stuff
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get done. And so I really needed to write this book first before
Mm-hmm.
writing the books about how to do the online course, blueprint or whatever. There's so many people that do that, right? The
Yeah.
and I find that, you have to make time for your health,
Mm-hmm.
or else once you get here, it's not it's not going to be what you want it to be. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not the right track if you don't know who you are and what you want to offer. And that has to come from learning self-awareness. Like, what is it that you want? you know, because it might
Mm-hmm.
look very different a year from now if you're going down with what everybody else is telling you to do. You have to get quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably
Cool.
experienced that.
Then, yeah, and now with release from Kesha, I love how that comes back into you say, so it's very clear you teach people on how to structure their course, and
Yes.
then you have a full roster where you do it for people, so you don't promote that. And you say, in all your experience in different fields, different industries, the one thing that kept coming back was own self-worth, own self-image, own identity, knowing who we are. And that's why the book on health was so crucial to write first and write now.
Yeah.
And then brings me to the question again. What was one of the first times that you had that own reflection and that own question as to ask yourself, who am I? That you started to really challenge those titles and those identities.
I'd have to say it was not right at the death of my dad, but after he passed away. It was a year later. We went to that same beach, and before I went on vacation, like this is a place that is completely remote. There is nothing there except for a beautiful white sand beach, and you have your tent. Okay. So my mom, she hands me this stack of books, and she's like, "These were some of the last books that your dad and I were reading before he died." And she said, "The one on the top, we were trying to fix our finances and your dad's health." She said, "Maybe you'll get something out of it." And Ramiro, it was The Secret by Rhonda O'Byrne. And so I went back to that beach and I started reading the book, and I could hear my dad narrating it in my head,
Oh
because he
wow.
was he was my rock. He was like, you know if anybody, if I didn't feel like somebody believed in me, he always did. And there were a lot of times in my life where it's like, your parents, you get paid to tell me I'm great. It doesn't mean you think I am. Like, I would really have a chip on my shoulder about that, because I was teased like nonstop. A good sport about it. I never felt like woe is me about it, but that was my identity. So I had by this time I had shed that identity. I was very, very very obese till I was about 26, and I didn't know anything outside of that. And I didn't know what healthy was or felt like, and until I did. I didn't know I could until I did, basically. And then once I did, I realized how different life could be. And so I started to think about, what else can I do? But if one would say that that was my big pivotal moment, I would say no. I would argue with that it wouldn't, because it got worse before it got better. Then I had the fear of going back. Then I had I had disordered eating patterns. I was terrified that they would see me gain it all back. And
Hmm.
so it wasn't until I moved to this new community that I was able to walk into my new life as Karen, not as the fat girl that lost a ton of weight. That maybe is gonna, let's watch her gain it all back. Because those are all voices inside my head, right? So I got to walk into this new life, but I was still really struggling with the fear of losing it, the judgment that came with gaining a little bit of weight after I quit smoking. So it wasn't until I read that book that I was like, what am I really doing? Like, what is this really about? Um, because life is basically, we're all going to die. And do I want to die counting my blueberries and worrying so much about my size? Or do I want to be able to take this information and somehow help other women breathe confidence into their everyday life? And the first course I built was the Love Your Body Now Club. And it was a huge failure, in my opinion, because nobody types into including me, I never type into a Google search, how to love my body. It's like, how do I lose this weight? Right. So it was just, I just felt like nobody wants to love their body. But we all do. But first you have to learn to like it. So that, I know that's a long-winded answer, but um, I'm 48. So or am I 49? I'm 48. So there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that goes in to when I'm giving a long answer. A lot of self-awareness, and it never ends, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Now, you mentioned the first answer to that question was a year after your dad passed when you read that book, and you started talking about after you had transformed your body and lost all that weight, there was still that identity of that was tied to that brought those fears of, well, people think they're rooting for me to fail and to
Mm-hmm.
divert back to gaining all that weight, right? So in one way, what I see, you still had that identity of, yeah, I lost this weight, but I'm still that same person, and I'll gain it all
Mm-hmm.
back. And there was this fear, right? And it was
Yes.
only, and then you entered this new community where you did not have those voices. Oh, is she gonna gain it back?
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, right. And then when you read that book, were those critical questions? I love what you said. Is life about counting your blueberries? And to eventually go to loving your body, and okay, you a step before that, like it first. But that's so crucial because people they focus on, well, they're unhappy with, let's say, overweight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so they focus on the problem, the symptom, the way it manifests in how
Yes.
they are not loving their body, right? And even when it's on health and wellness, fitness, and the cosmetic industry, it's all about the outer appearances. But at the end of the day, what you said is that we want to feel good. If we don't feel good, we don't get stuff done,
Yes,
right? So
that's right.
that's one of the first times where you started peeling back those layers of identity. And no, I am not that person, and that's not what it's about. It's not
Yeah.
about just struggling to to have the appearance that I want or that is acceptable, but it's more about loving myself and loving my body for who I
Mm-hmm.
am. So that's one of the things, and it's definitely a ongoing process of raising awareness and becoming more conscious about it. So,
It
all right.
well, it can get really ugly when you get quiet with yourself.
Mm,
Like self-awareness it can be a really painful exercise, because
mm-hmm.
because you basically you're sitting with the fact that I am responsible for everywhere that I've brought myself, and I'm actually responsible for where I am right now. And it's interesting because I had this big bulk weight loss. Okay, this big bulk where everybody's like, "Yeah, you look great. What are you doing?" And then over the course of 20 years, I've come up about 20 pounds. And nobody ever says, "Oh, you look so great. Would you gain a couple sizes? What you doing? You're puffy. Wow." Unless that person maybe needs to, right? Like, so I'm just talking about, the weight fluctuations. Not There are people that will look better when they gain weight. I'm not talking about that. I'm basically talking about how it felt to realize, oh my gosh, I stepped on the scale, I'm 20 pounds. Why didn't anybody tell me? Is that why everyone got quiet? Nobody's telling me I look great anymore. And so it's really seeking that outside validation. I think that once we just strip away the outside validation and just look at the things, okay, what am I feeding my mind? What kind of foods am I putting in my body? And am I moving every day? And those are like just the fundamentals, right? Everything else, like our DNA and all of that, is so individual. I always recommend people seek more self-awareness. Your body is not your enemy. It wants to work with you. So don't torture it. And so that's kind of the whole message that I like to share, and I could talk about for millions of years. And you know how, when you go to this entrepreneurial school, I'm quoting that, putting that in quotes, they tell you to, when you're working on a hobby or a thing or a book, I've learned to take on the thing that you could talk for a million hours about and share a million stories about. But because I had fluctuated up and down, I feel like, who wants to read a health book from me? Because, you know, I don't, I'm not the picture of, the cover of Sports Illustrated. And I will never, like, the principles that I take might not ever get you there. I'm not that trainer. Right. So I'm 48, I'm pretty sure. 1973. I'm 5'1". I'm an endomorph. I have no gallbladder. And I spent the first 27 years of my life with obese. So my body really knows how to make fat cells. And I also did I say I have no gallbladder? So there's nowhere,
Yeah.
For that bile to go except for my liver. So that means I have to be really mindful of, if I go a vacation spurt and I'm eating in restaurants for a week, I have to really clean it up on the backside. I can gain 10 pounds in an hour. I could show you, just because of the inflammation. So it's just being aware of what your body can do. I've ran 2 marathons, about 10
Nice.
half marathons, and I was a fitness instructor for 6 years. And it's how you can look at different things through an energetic level and an energetic lens. How can I keep my body healthy and strong for my later years, is what we do today. So I ran from that. I ran from it because I thought, who's going to listen to me? And I dove into this. Oh, well, I can help people build courses because I'm really good at that. I'm really good at anything. I'm going to be bold and say that, because I think what gives me that ability is because I'm able to share stories and be authentic with people. And now I am always putting other people in, my people pleasing mentality sets in, and it's like, what else can I do for you? How else can I make you happy? and that comes from being a good sport, of being teased. Is like, I found my superpower in being nice. The kid with the greatest
Okay.
personality. Yeah.
Well, one thing you just mentioned in that sharing is that embracing, you went from, well, who am I to write a book or teach on this topic, to now saying, no, I am great at everything and you are doing it. So what was that shift? And sometimes, it's often those things go gradually, but what really helped you make that shift? And how long were you consciously making that shift into really embracing and saying, yes, I can do this and I will do this, and my voice matters and my experience matters to teach on this topic?
Well, it started when I was a health and fitness coach, and when I got into the health industry, and I created that um, the Love Your Body Now club, and which was a whole online course about just the basics. Like I'm not I've never gone deep into nutrition, but I've gone deep into self study and just teaching people, when I go back to my accidental weight loss, all I was doing was walking. So just teaching people to like start where they are today and build upon that. And when you go through the ups and downs and the valleys, sometimes if I want to go and run a marathon tomorrow, I can't because I haven't done the training. So when I
Mm-hmm.
start the training again, I have to remind myself that I'm a beginner again. It doesn't matter what I was. So even
Mm.
comparison to ourselves can be, you know, not very great.
Helpful.
So
Yeah.
when I was I felt like when I was an online health and fitness coach, I had to, in order to be successful, I had to do these before and after shots. Now, I didn't
Mm.
have to,
Mm.
but I never felt comfortable about that because I knew that number one, I had to like really, really focus hard on getting the right angle, the right lighting to show any difference at all. And I felt so dishonest saying that you're going to feel better and look better here than you are there, which might be a 5 pound change. And I'm not knocking anybody that needs that goal. So I'm basically, I don't want to offend anybody that is in that industry. It just, that's the way I thought I had to do it. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know very many people that do it really, really well in a body confident way. And I know a lot of people that don't do it. Like I've seen a lot of people that don't do it very well. So when I decided was, I'll answer your question. I have loaded, like I always tell stories before I get to the point. It's just a habit. So sorry if
That's
it's
great. No, I love
long-winded.
it. Don't apologize. That's the whole point of it. That's what makes it relatable. That's what makes it juicy. What's what connects, and that gives some more perspective to just the answer. So do not apologize.
Thank you. Right before the pandemic, it was January. I had my body was telling me it really needed my attention. And I'm sorry, Ramiro, you might never, you probably, I know you for sure won't have to deal with the woman's change. Um, and so I had a real hormonal shift and trouble because I was overdoing everything on my body. I was over dieting because I couldn't lose the weight. I had just run a marathon. I was wondering, why can't I lose the weight? I was working way too much. And I hit a physical wall, and I had a little mini breakdown, hormonally charged. So I had to learn how to reprogram my nervous system, and I actually healed my own body and was able to sidestep a full hysterectomy. And when the pandemic hit, I had never before this time in my life, before the hormonally charged anxiety that debilitated me, I had never really experienced true anxiety ever. Like,
Mm.
I've had it on, the subway or when you get on a plane, and there were little signs and clues that I was getting a little bit more fearful about things before it happened. But for about 2 weeks, I was crying in doctor's offices saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know how
Mm.
to function. And so I was very fortunate to be referred to really great doctors that helped me heal naturally and
Mm-hmm.
helped me to really understand that the combination of the overworking, the intermittent fasting, the over exercising, the caffeine, and all of these dieting things that I thought were to become healthier were
Mm-hmm.
actually at that specific time making it worse. So I
Mm.
had to turn everything on its head about with my morning routine, and all of my anchors were released at the same time we got our new dog Tula, who massive anxiety, this dog, and it was my job to bring her confidence. And it was just such a interesting time because I had this dog that had an issue. I had issues. She saved my life because I had to go outside every day, and there was 4 feet of snow. It was the middle of winter. It was not. If I was left to my own devices, I didn't have a dog, I wouldn't have gotten outside even for that walk. It was that
Mm.
debilitating, and I was embarrassed. I
Mm.
I didn't know how to talk to people about it. So I was very lucky, and my doctor told me, she shared with me, okay, you have to go back. You have to treat yourself with kid gloves. You need to eat 6 times a day. Don't let yourself get hungry. You need to go
Mm.
down to like yoga and meditation. And so I picked all that up about, I was learning, doing all of that in my morning routine about 3 months before the pandemic hit. And when the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic hit, I realized, okay, it kind of gave me another shake. Like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what kind of thing do I want to leave for the future generation of women? What do I want
Mm.
to leave to my stepdaughter? What do I want her to know about being a woman and about not
Mm.
being afraid to do things because of body image and stuff like that? And I just naturally got back into the swing of helping people with their health and their lifestyle. Like, it just felt like the right thing to do. And then it wasn't until about a month ago where I decided, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I have a book here with drawings and stuff like that, and I have a vision board, and I'm supposed to have
Mm-hmm.
a book written by this year, and I hadn't started it yet. So I I'm just like, okay, we're doing it. And so I knew what I needed to do that, because it's the same thing as for body, for getting anything done is structuring into touching it every day. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it evolved. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Now, so first of all, it was that transition, the change you're experiencing as a woman, and I will experience that by relating to the women around me. So I experience it from a
Yes.
different perspective.
Yes.
and and so that was one thing that really shook your world. And luckily through the right doctors, you realized that the things that you were doing, the habits, your routines you had in
Mhm.
place, they're not inherently bad, and they're normally good, but in that phase, it was not helpful to transition and to go through those
Yes.
changes. So you had to go back to the drawing board, and you started doing some things. And one of the things you mentioned that really made you wake up was the whole pandemic. You asked the question, wait, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? And that's when you started then naturally going back to empowering and helping women on how they feel, not just about their body, but just about their identity and loving their body and loving themselves, basically.
Yeah.
And then fast forward later, still just more awareness, more consciousness, and then, oh shit, I gotta get this book done. So getting started on that book. I love that. One thing that you mentioned that really resonates is that value on our body, and knowing that it is so important, because when you do get to a place of material success and we are not taking care of our body, that material success is not going to be what we expected it to be, is
Yes.
what you mentioned. And one thing that I'm realizing at a deeper level still more is just that how this human body is the vessel to carry this spirit in this lifetime. So
Yes.
when I am in 90 years, when I'm 120 years old, I still want to be functioning and don't have a broken down body. So to take care of it daily and just the small little things like sleep. And I love how you mentioned focusing on the basics, the
Yeah.
fundamentals, and that are just so crucial because, you know, masters, they master the fundamentals,
Yes.
right? So this book, you have written a book already on health, right? Or is that the one you're writing right now?
The rough copy is done. I need to add another thing in there that I think has been really fundamental to me, my self-realization and making me go, is that I also invested in pretty heavily in some amazing coaching, both
Mm-hmm.
story coaching and personal, like it's kind of like all into one, personal coaching,
Mm-hmm.
presentation coaching. I'm training to be, I'm in training, and I am becoming motivational speaker, which is one of the things that I've always, kind of said, well, who's going to listen to me? So I'm coming into that, coming into my writing, and being the teacher and the trainer. And I've been really blessed with amazing coaches that have been peeling these stories out of me. So it's the act of having great coaches and writing the right things to deepen self-awareness. It's really helped me unclog some drains and really go back to that impression point, like the
Mm-hmm.
injection point of the limited belief,
Mm-hmm.
and just do the pathway of how am I acting towards this now. So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to add that on, that it wasn't just me, oh, I'm gonna write a book. So I I've had a lot of really great coaches over, the last 5-6 years, but in the last year, especially, I really dove deep into that. And when you make an investment in great coaches, you do the work. like it's there's skin in the game. So I have the rough draft done, and so just in the editing phases, and my goal is to have it publishable, ready for the publishing. I'll publish it on KDP and
Mm-hmm.
Kindle, because I'm not going to let looking for a publisher hold me back. You have to
Mm-hmm.
release something, right?
Yeah.
Um, and October 15th. And I said that if I don't have it done by October
Mm-hmm.
15th, that I have to prune all the trees and get the yard ready for winter. And we have a half acre, and that includes raking. My least favorite thing in the world to do is yard work. So the stakes are high. And
Nice.
yeah, so that's where I'm at with the book.
All
Working
right,
on
cool.
titles, and I'll be doing chapter one reading. I'll be inviting my subscribers to the chapter one reading and conversation about it after the reading. So, sort of like a table reading with discussion
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. I'd like to be doing that within the next couple of weeks
So
too.
I'm curious, do you already have your title picked out?
Well, I have a few that I'm playing with. Um,
Okay.
do you want to play with them?
Well, I'm curious because if people find this today or tomorrow or a year from now and they want to look at your book, that how they could look for it. But they probably could look for your name, Karen Wilson, on the whole Amazon ecosystem.
It's Karen Louise Wilson I'm using for my publishing name, because there is another Karen Wilson, that's a
All
writer.
right, cool.
Um, I
Yeah.
I thought about going to my maiden name, but I don't want to do that. There's not very many Karen Abels in the world. Um, but I just want to, yeah. So that's where I'm on Amazon.
All
Will be
right, cool.
Karen Louise
Karen
Wilson.
Louise Wilson. And your maiden name is Abel. That's so Great. I love that name, Able. All
It's
right, cool.
spelled
Then,
EL, and I
uh-huh.
have like the able
Yeah.
frame, right? When I say able
Uh-huh.
frame, it's like you put 2 feet in, robust, able frame. And I heard that all my life. She's got the able frame. So anyway, yeah, it's a good frame to have. I've never broke a bone. Knock on wood.
Nice. All right, cool. I'm down to play with the titles. You want to play?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, sure. That would be great. I have them on my phone here, so I'm gonna just look on the phone. So one of the ones that I'm leaning towards, but I really want to ask my followers. I want to ask my email list, and I'll be asking on Instagram. Is number one is body love, tame the ugly inside voice, and the dieting wars, and live energetically.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is weightless, learning to like your body so you can love your future. That's the one I'm leaning towards, but I don't want to like lead the witness, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
so it's tough because I do give some real solutions, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's basics. Like if you want a diet book, there's lots of diet books out there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the framework of living energetically,
Mm-hmm.
and the success on all terms. If you want to lose 10 pounds fast in 5 days, I'm not going to give you like a meal plan to follow, because even healthful foods can cause inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you're tolerant to or not tolerant to. I don't know where your hormones are at. I don't like, there's so many things that people just
Yeah.
need to be their own advocate, not
Mm-hmm.
follow something that somebody else has given because it's worked for somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is
Mm-hmm.
working anyways? I can go on a tangent. Like, what is working? Is it losing 10 pounds for 10 minutes and then, you, you eat a pizza and it's all done? It's I've been in that the ugly side of weight loss maintenance is kind of
Mm.
what I call it. Is I've never exposed that I'm struggling, and I've never wanted anyone to think that this is a huge struggle, because 95% of the time I think very positively and I seek energy. But there is that 5% of the time where I look in the mirror and I see that bulge and I see that thing, and or in the fitting room mirrors, those are the worst places. I don't know who designed mirrors in a fitting room that are 360 degrees and make you look 10 feet shorter and like 20 feet wider. Like, who does that? What makes you want to buy clothes there? So I
That may be intentional, but let's not get into that whole wormhole. And all right, before we continue, you mentioned two titles. It brings me back to your first course, How to Love Your Body, right?
Yes,
And you
yeah,
said that one didn't wasn't successful in your opinion because people don't look up how to love your body. They look
that's
up
right.
how to lose weight, right? Now, your two titles, they had that same thing in it, love your body. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if that changed and people nowadays look at up love your body, but you mentioned another thing that you didn't call it a title, but that to me it would be more intriguing. You mentioned the ugly side of weight loss or the ugly side of health and fitness.
Yes.
So what I heard was, for example, the ugly side of weight loss exposed or revealed, or the
Yeah.
ugly side of a solution, something like that. But anyway, that was that was a little 2 cents on what I saw and hear you say. And coming back to, I love that you can talk for millions of hours or millions of years on this topic, and it comes, it keeps going back to one thing I love what you said, the energetics of it, and how it is so important to have it be custom to you, because every body reacts different, and
Yes.
there are different phases. What, for example, what worked for you before going through the women's change, those things were not working when you were going through that phase, and you needed to
Yeah.
pivot and adjust to fine
Yes.
tune it. And it's a constant process of listening to the body and being more fluid and having more the energetics behind it versus just this strict plan regimen that again works for another body but not for your body. So, oh, I
Yes.
love that. All right, cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. So, October 15th, gonna launch, or otherwise, you gotta
Well,
rake the
not
leaves.
necessarily launch.
Publish,
Ready
ready to
to
publish.
send some manuscripts to some carefully selected people
Uh-huh.
for reading and reviews. So
Mm.
that's where I believe that that will be the first step, because I don't want to just send it to anybody. I want
Mm.
somebody that really wants that really is looking for this type of information. And I like
Mm.
what you said about what you liked about the ugly. I had one of the titles that I had thought is "Tame the Ugly, Stop the Body War Game, and Find Health on Your Terms." Uh, so I'm going to be asking everybody, and then I also have my graphic designer working on book covers. So I'm going to ask everybody else, because I know like what re- resonates with me isn't necessarily what's going to resonate with the
Mm.
reader. And
Mm.
so that's kind of where I am there. And the reason why I hesitate on having it be just the ugly side of weight loss is I do give some real tangible things in there that people can do instead. And
Mm.
I also wanted this to be more of an empowering book, more
Mm-hmm.
so than like a negative energy, like "Rrr, it's everybody else's fault." You know, I really wanted to come it across that every woman that reads this book is in the driver's seat, and and it's not all bad, but this is the ugly side. And so I share a lot of my inside voice stories that some of them might shock people, but I, you know, if I'm sitting down with coffee or having a one-on-one client and we're discussing these things, I talk about it. I talked about these things in the cosmetic department. That's how we connected. How I connect so well with the clients that I work with is that I don't hold back. Um,
Mm.
I don't hold back my ugly pieces. So this is just the first time that I'm going, you know, public with
Mm.
that. So we'll see how it
Yeah, I love
goes.
that. I love that, and I definitely agree and see what you mean with you don't want to have that title be more from a negative perspective,
Yeah.
more from an empowering and hopeful. I totally get that, and even before I share that, I realized that that's also the case. So
It
within
is
the
chapter
difference in
1.
those title.
It's the
Oh,
chapter 1
cool.
title though. It's chapter 1 title. So
Is
just
it the ugly side of weight loss?
the ugly side of weight loss. Yeah. It's the chapter
Oh,
1
nice.
title. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, 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 yeah. All
Yeah.
right, cool.
I think it'll stay
Yeah, all
that
right.
way. We'll see. I'm in the editing process, so that's that's fun.
Yeah, cool, cool. All right, exciting. And yeah, so you are, and that's what I love is that you are going back into what you shared earlier about, well, I'm not on the cover of Sports Illustrated and I never will be, right? And
Yes.
so who's going to listen to me? And what you just mentioned, you are real, you don't hold back, you're transparent, you're open, you show the ugly as well. And that is what is real, and that's what people can relate with and can relate to, and that is so powerful. And it takes courage to show who you are, so I see you for that. And I know it's also because of what you experience as being kind of teased or bullied, yeah, teased as a little kid, and
Yeah.
being that good sport, and then now being just unapologetically just being who you are and showcasing it. And that, and I know in order to be able to do that and have that courage, you need to have that strong core of knowing who you are, and you are Karen. So what do you, so when actually looking back at it now, if when you lost all that weight and people go, oh, you look so great, what are you doing, what do you do, and then usually, yeah, you go, I do Karen.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been great, right? Like, just I do Karen. And
Yeah.
if and that's the piece that I like to refer back to, because there was a real thrill there. The you know For example, I had never seen anything in my adult life below 200. So the
Mm.
first, yeah, then I was in the, I was upwards, and for 5'1", that's a generous amount
Mm.
to be.
Mm.
So I didn't believe I could lose weight. I had tried different things, sweating with the
Mm.
oldies. I had tried not eating. I had tried cabbage soup diets, and and it just ended up just failing and making me feel like more of a failure, or I couldn't walk the next day because I had never really exercised that way. So it didn't last. And I
Mm.
just thought, this is who I am. Let's just embrace who I am. But when the first time that I got to 190, and then 180, and then 170, I mean, how thrilled I was. I was just like, this is amazing. And the first time I got into a single digit or out of the plus size section, I was like,
Mm.
this is great. So why isn't that great now? Why do I, if I were to gain 10 or 20 pounds, why can't I
Mm.
be just as excited if I feel
Mm.
energetic and good about myself?
Mm.
So that's what I always refer back to, and so that's kind of the plan that I help to inject into helping people find out, what's your numbers, what's your sliding
Mm.
scale, what are you
Yeah.
keeping in your closet, and where do you know to rope it in, and just kind of take notice of what your habits have become, because you're always going in and out of it. Maintenance is not a steady road.
I love that. Wow. So, what you just touched upon is that how a absolute number, if be it size, be it weight, is so dependent on perspective. Because coming to a
Yeah,
certain weight, from the highs to that, it's amazing. But when we go from lows to that weight, it's not amazing anymore,
that's
right? And
right.
why
That's right.
not? Yeah, yeah. It
And
reminds me of
nobody's complimenting you anymore. Right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
nobody's
yeah.
and I remember at times, like, when I gained weight when I quit smoking. I knew that was going to happen. I was terrified about it, but
Mm.
I knew, I embraced it. I'm like, I'm doing something good for my body. I'm going to embrace it. And I remember, like, when I had gained that weight, it was like 20 pounds in 30 days. It was ridiculous, but it stuck for a couple
Mm.
of years. And then when
Mm.
I lost it, people were telling me how great I looked. And I'm like, I didn't think I looked that bad. Like, you know, I didn't think I looked that bad. And so coming out of, when we're all starting to mingle with the pandemic and stuff like that, I noticed that, there's some people that have really dove hard into their fitness and health and looking after
Mm.
themselves. And there's some people that don't feel great about themselves. And what's happening is we're all coming together again. And there's those self-judgment eyes that, oh my gosh, and I do it too. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm writing a book about weight,
Uh,
and I'm not at my leanest. Are people going to buy it if they see what
mm.
I look like?
Mm.
It's, I'm not judging, but I do self-judge. And I
Mm.
think that by sharing that, I I don't know if anybody else does, but if they do, they're not alone, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It reminds me of this friend I have. She, I don't know the weight. I don't know her weight, but she's big. She's big, and then she had lost some weight, and what happened? She started getting compliments. Oh, girl, you look so.
Yep.
Get more attention from strangers.
Yeah.
You look good. What you doing? You're beautiful. And she was so pissed off. She didn't love those compliments. They're like,
Yeah.
wait. So now, because I lost the weight, you're gonna compliment me and you're gonna acknowledge me and you think I'm beautiful and pretty. Fuck all
Yeah.
y'all. And then she gained back the weight because to like a middle finger, like, I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do whatever I want. I love
Right.
my cupcake. I love my snacks. I love my desserts after every meal to just treat
Yeah.
me, and she's good with that. So she actually got mad and upset for from getting the compliments because she knows I'm still the same person. Like
Yeah.
now you're gonna acknowledge me because I lost some weight, so it
Well,
reminds
it
me of
gets
that.
old.
That
It gets old,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's the thing. I love that you touched on that because I felt that too. Like all of a sudden, like people are just loving me and I'm getting dates with anybody that I want. And I was the safe fat girl that any girl trusted with their husband or boyfriends, and now all of a sudden I was dangerous. And I hadn't changed anything about myself. I got better sales on the sales floor. I like everything was just better, and it was so exciting to have that great energy, but then sometimes it was just so exhausting. It's like
Mm,
because then there's for me, I developed the fear of gaining it back. I kind of wish I had a
mm,
little bit more of an FU attitude, but I was just so wrapped up in pleasing everybody else and finally being something likable for and attractive, you know.
mm,
I growing up saying you'd be so pretty if you just lost 50 pounds. You'd be so pretty if you didn't wear glasses. It was like you would be so pretty if there was always a
mm,
condition, and all conditions were
mm,
removed. So
mm,
it's a very, and that's what I really discuss in is the ugly side of weight loss, right?
mm,
Because sometimes people are not doing healthy things and they're being complimented for their weight loss, and I'm sorry if that's a trigger warning, but it's true. I wasn't.
mm,
Right, and I'm being complimented, so what am I going
uh,
to do? I'm going to do more of it because I'm getting validated, or that's
mm,
where I was mindset
mm.
wise. So I think
Yeah,
it's a huge
reward.
discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting rewarded for the result, but the results come from actually hurting the body.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
you do more of it because you keep getting that external validation and reward, and there's this negative spiral and cycle where you go like,
Yes.
"What the fuck am I doing?" All right, cool.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly. It's like
Karen.
I'm Karen, and this is who I am. You know,
Mm,
when you're when I was heavy, I was the nice girl. She's fun to be
mm,
around. She makes everybody laugh. She brings you energy. When I was lean, she's such a flirt. Watch out. Like, and it's just like I didn't change my
I'm
personality.
still me.
I
Yeah.
got more confident, but it's not going to make me run towards and be a threat. I'm
Mm,
not that person. So,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, so important, so important. All right, so with that, we're about to wrap
Yeah.
up.
I can't
For
believe it's already been an hour. You're so fun to
yeah,
talk.
we can talk for another few hours, so we might have to do another episode in another season. So we'll see how that goes. And for now, I want to ask you if your message that you want to share with people today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now, what message would that be?
Be you. However corny that sounds, be unapologetically you. Always seek for more answers about your individual body and your individual purpose and what is meant for. Get quiet, dig into self awareness, and it's going to lead you to open up all the doors towards everything that you want. Um, don't seek for answers outside yourself unless it's for feedback, because feedback is a gift that helps you deliver better.
Beautiful. Thank you. Be you, and I know you do, Karen. Thank you, Karen. So, this was
Thanks.
Story Legacy at Ramiro.me. We're going to end with a kapow, and that's a little celebration move. It means breakthrough, it means growth. So, I'm going to say you know how now, and then together we say kapow. Are you ready?
Yes.
You know how now?
Kapow!
Kapow! Nice.